Bernie Sanders has a new campaign ad. It shows him as the person to defeat President Trump. He's also facing some, I don't know what you'd call it, backlash, but interesting comments from notable billionaires over them insisting that he shouldn't exist.
Team Rising is here to weigh in. Andrew Feldman is a Democratic strategist, and Julia Manchester is a political reporter for The Hill. Welcome back to you both, all-star panel today.
Good to see you.
Yeah, great to see you guys.
I mean, first of all, we have to start off with this new ad. I think it's $1.3 million ad buy from Bernie Sanders, and it's a pretty clear one. Let's take a listen to what it says.
Now, our country is at a turning point. A dangerous demagogue tearing our nation apart. Hard-working people betrayed by Trump. A healthcare system that makes enormous profits for drug and insurance companies. And a planet on the brink of a climate disaster. In this moment, we need a fighter. Bernie Sanders. We know he'll fight for us as president because he always has.
So some interesting things we can always see there. So from the Elizabeth Warren ad, I think from the $10 million ad buy, I don't recall Trump actually being mentioned. The centerpiece on that one was corruption. Bernie kind of almost setting himself up in a front runner type status. What did you think of this, Julia?
So Sagar, when I watched this, one comparison I made was Bernie Sanders is trying to make this a two-man race against Trump like Joe Biden has.
Exactly.
He's trying to get Elizabeth Warren out of the equation and make himself directly against Trump. One other thing I noticed during the ad is he talks about, there's the line, he will fight like he always has. This is Bernie Sanders trying to make himself as the godfather, the grandfather of these progressive policies. So before the AOCs, before the Elizabeth Warrens, it was Bernie Sanders fighting for these progressive policies.
Which is true.
Absolutely. So this is what he's trying to do, because he has been trailing in the polls behind Elizabeth Warren. He's very much been, pushed to the side. So this is him trying to edge his way back into that second or first place.
I think that electability piece is really sort of front and center here, right? He wants to make the case, and the polls back it up, that he is the fighter who can take on Trump and win. So I think it's a smart approach. I also think, to your point, Julia, about Elizabeth Warren, one of the open questions that remains about her is whether she would be able to win against Trump. The polls are a lot less clear in that direction.
What do you think, Andrew?
Well, the first thing I have to say about this ad is it's about damn time. I have no understanding, cannot wrap my head around why Bernie Sanders has not been advertising earlier than now. This ad goes up on, I believe,
he's had a boatload of money.
A boatload of money. October 3rd, this ad goes up, and here's the problem, right? The Des Moines Register poll came out a week or two ago and showed him in a distant third in Iowa. My belief is that if he was up earlier, it would be a much tighter race. So I just don't understand the strategy. I think he's putting this ad up with a narrative that has already changed against him. As Julia said, he's been down in the polls. So look, I'm happy he's up, but I also think we need to compare this to 2016. The first ad for Bernie Sanders in 2016 was something that left, I think, people's mouths open. It was the Tad Devine ad.
That was a beautiful ad, America.
The America ad, right, with Sarman and Garfunkel. This, to me, is a more traditional campaign ad, and I'm not sure people are going to be wowed as they were with that America ad.
I think that's a fair point. That where have they been up to this point?
Also, why only 1.3 million?
They've certainly had the money to be up. So where has it been? And of course, they split with Tad Devine and that team.
There was a debate. I know Julia knows about this. There was a debate internally on the campaign about whether they were going to produce their ads in-house or if they were going to, go with a professional firm. My understanding is that this campaign ad is done in-house with the video team that is on the Sanders campaign full-time. It's interesting to me because Michael Bennet, most people don't know his name, is probably the reason why he was up with a 7-figure ad buy last week in Iowa. But it's just interesting. The ad wars are getting crowder and crowder for him to just come on.
What did you make, Julia? I mean, first of all, the number jumped out at me. It's only $1.3 million. I mean, Elizabeth Warren's out with a $10 million buy, and she's already at the top of the field. What is the Sanders strategy here?
Yeah, I think that's a question I've been asking with this ad, and I think I was expecting more money to be spent on this, especially since I wouldn't say he's I guess he's trailing behind Warren and Biden, and really, since he has that high name recognition, since he's so popular with progressives, he should be doing better than he is. We saw his fundraising numbers from yesterday. I think it was like roughly 25 million. I don't, maybe they're trying to focus that money elsewhere, but I was surprised.
I will say, to Andrew's point, I mean, look, TV consultants love TV commercials because that's where they make their money. That's where the money in campaigns funds typically goes. And there is a lot of evidence that it's becoming less and less effective. So you point to Michael Bennett with some big ad buy. What's it done for him? So I think they have spent their money and their time, their focus in other directions. But I did think this was a strong ad. At the same time, some new comments.
Some hilarious.
Are hilarious. So Sanders, of course, famously recently said billionaires shouldn't exist. So Steven Schwarzman, billionaire founder of Blackstone, was asked about this. And he said, well, maybe Bernie Sanders shouldn't exist.
Wow.
Now, this is the setting when he said this, which is what really caught my, it could not be more perfect. Down to the cufflinks and the wine glasses and the portraits and some like gilded gold thing that I can't even tell what it is in the background, not to mention the socks. Andrew, Bernie should be paying these guys for their endorsement here.
Absolutely, just like you know, look, he's going to raise a boatload of money off this, and probably announce that it was his, you know, one of his top fundraising days after this came out. But it's just like Elizabeth Warren should be paying Mark Zuckerberg, right? I mean, these guys are
so clueless,
completely out of touch because they don't. Look, they don't have PR people in this typical sense that's saying, hey, remember, all your comments are public, like, be careful what you say. Look, clearly he doesn't like Bernie Sanders, and he's an old curmudgeon, and he doesn't know what he's saying.
And I think they don't get how much the landscape has changed. They are used to running the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. They're used to these people cowering before them and saying, I'm sorry, sir, I'm sorry I upset you. And it's a new model now. You don't have to do that anymore.
But Michael Bennett and John Delaney don't understand how the landscape has changed, right? They're still thinking that they
Joe Biden doesn't understand how the
Julie,
landscape
what did you make of
changed.
I mean, it just shows, I think, a failure to adapt on their part, and a failure of maybe some of the more establishment members, and I don't want to say establishment members of the Democratic Party, but establishment backers of the parties. Failure to adapt. But man, if I were Bernie Sanders, I would be loving this right now. We're talking about ads and digital advertising. Well, here you go. Here's some material. There you go. Exactly.
All right, guys, stick with us. We got more we want to get to. We got some fundraising numbers we're going to tackle after a quick break.